Alright, time for actually have a gameplay section on how Celebrimbor, became the Bright Lord.
Is this the last of the DLC, or is there more DLC?
It's only 2 parts, counting also this one, and after that, it's we're actually going to the sequel.
Of course. It sounds like, honestly, it's best to play the two back-to-back from how you described it.
I was tempted also to put this in chronological order the moment, Celebrimbor has that final seizure before Gollum tries to kill Talion with a rock. But again, I thought it might have felt a bit too intrusive, so no, let's play it safe.
That does ironically sound like what a definitive version of a game that Insert DLC would have done.
Sort of a director's cut kind of thing. There you go, the Bright Lord. There you go.
Get it? The Bright Lord.
As opposed to the Dark Lord, because Celebrimbor...
the Shadow Lord?
Well, no, the Dark Lord, that's what Sauron defines himself as. That's because Celebrimbor is, being a second age elf at the very least, is a bit of an holier-than-thou attitude, as you will see.
How did he escape your Dark Lord in the first place?
Also, this cutscene is surprisingly over-animated.
I know, right? Jesus. Although I
see that the Uruks have a different armor set because this is again second age.
Yeah, I was gonna give him credit. Like the orcs do look notably different back in this time, more thicker.
The same. It's just the aesthetics looking differently. So I know what you're thinking. What does controlling a character which possesses a ring of power feels like? Well, that's what we're here to find out with our first fight.
All right. Let me guess. Celebrimbor got a little,
Alright, now for the tutorial, you have the ring in a sort of a bar base fully activated, and you activated a super mode with R3, L3 plus R3. It's essentially a case where time freezes, and you have infinite executions available.
Hey Frodo, what was your excuse for not using these game-breaking abilities with the One Ring of Power?
Because Peter Jackson thought my character would work best if he was mostly a wimp.
Okay. Okay, to be fair, you were kind of even more of a wimp in the original book, so if anything, Jackson did you favors.
I will explain in a second. Yes, Pedro?
It feels like a more chainable version of the ultimate moves from Heavenly Sword.
Yes and no.
Alright.
Is there any reason they're using his more ghostly voice here? I could have sworn he sounded more normal at the start of this DLC.
It's still the same, Drova. It's always the same. He doesn't really have his voice changed from back when he was alive.
It sounded like they had the ghostly echo thing, though, so I'm guessing,
It's because those are his mental thoughts. He's not repeating by voice, his things. Later on, you will even have, telepathic conversations against Sauron.
So I'm guessing, essentially your ghost form is your invisible form in this case.
Kinda, sorta. It's there for the sake of, not altering the gameplay too much. But here's also a difference. Celebrimbor, being alive and everything, being dead, does not possesses the focus, which again already puts you at a disadvantage because you do not possess the slow-mo when it comes to shooting. So you need to have the shot counts, and as such you cannot even charge the shots. But to compensate that, you also don't have that many elven projectiles. To compensate that, you have a new move called the Shadow Brand. Using the teleport move that you can use with the bow and arrow to kill someone, you can instead press circle to instantly brand an orc via distance like this. It's perfect to teleport away and gain a new ally immediately, and also to regain a bunch of elven projectiles. So again, the game is more balanced towards giving you a sort of a health handicap by not giving you full elf or elven shots, and a bunch of moves are not available. But to compensate, you have a few new tricks that can allow you to be just as powered as you may be for different reasons. That's pretty cool, actually. And like I said, some of these will return in some form of fashion in next game, because after all, the next game is about forging a new ring anyway. But to mention to what both you, Jova, and what Waves were mentioning about Frodo, that's the thing. Regardless of the book, it's funny because Vasky and Jackson had literal diametral opposing ideas when it came to the character. Again, Alistair Duncan is always a joy.
The Ballon d'Or? What, the
Barad-dûr,
football
that's the name of the
awards?
fortress.
If it's a Ballon d'Or, I was like, wait, you're giving away the big prize in football in Middle-earth?
Basically, for Bashki, Frodo was too much. Bashki made the Frodo too much courageous, and in order to compensate that made Sam an absolute whimpering idiot. And I don't understand why. Like, literally don't understand why, because that's not even remotely accurate to book Sam. While instead, Jaxor swung the pendulum completely in the different direction, and had Frodo being instead the more, weak. And even weak-willed, because again, the idea behind is that the wheel of a ring erodes his own as time passes, but he did too much of a job representing that. And instead, Sam is the one that has to, carry the entire weight, and at the end, literally, on that. The book had a bit more balance, where Frodo was still determined, but was not invincible, and remember, at the end of the day, he's still fucked up. But Sam was not, a whimpering idiot either. They were just, true companions that respected each other, but had their own strengths and weaknesses.
I would say at least the Jackson film let Frodo accomplish the final push against the ring in the end.
Yeah, if there's one credit that I can give to that is that at the very least give Frodo as minute of redemption, that because otherwise, yeah, it would really have been too much of a pain. Alright, let's brand this. We have our new captain to brand. Takrak.
I like how sometimes they'll do those fancy poses and everything only to immediately get mobbed by soldiers that you've already branded.
No, that's because, in this case it's more of a case of, the bodyguards and the cohort were just, moving forward, while the captain was taking a really sweet time. Unfortunately, I had been spotted, but thankfully I didn't, require to wait until now for getting the bonus objective. Yeah, another thing that you may have noticed through the voice lines, the orcs do react depending on your actions, like say, oh, he's up there above, or stop using arrows against us and stuff like that. And again, that one also gets expanded in the sequel.
Nice.
So again, it's not just the captain that have different voice lines, but also the moves depending on what actions do you perform. So yeah, the average mission will consist again in building up the meter of a ring and then unleashing its full powers towards instead, in this case, a warship. Because again, that's the entire plot of this DLC. But Celebrimbor was to brand the warships so he can wage war against Sauron.
Waves of Uruk-hatred, you elf monster!
Oh, sure. So yeah, those are the 5 warships that we had to gather intel from. Plus there are a couple of captains here and there. That's because this functions like a sort of a proper conquest mode. Again, a prototype of what we will be able to do in the sequel. This tells how the towers will build. Essentially, Celebrimbor forced the Divine Control Uruks to actually build the towers that you were using in the game, and as such, we use these to conquer the regions, the segments of these regions.
That speech, it does remind me. That speech does remind me of one thing I was wondering. Like, I wonder if part of Celebrimbor's reason for failure was because he got drunk on the power and arrogance of the ring.
Absolutely. Hubris as well. That's Celebrimbor's ultimate fatal flaw. He really thinks his shit doesn't stink.
Why is it that something still just refuse to change when it comes to elves?
Second Age elves, Jova, they really, the books, movies, and this really hammers into your skull that the Second Age elves were a product of over time, in a sense that they really thought too highly of themselves and thought that no other evil after the defeat of Morgoth will ever arose.
Return to me what is mine, betrayer. I taught you everything. Without me, you are nothing. The ring will never serve you. Every moment you resist, your family will suffer.
Silence, deceiver. I forged the rings. I perfected the one. You will bow before me.
Oh god, this sounds like a case where if Sauron hadn't won, Celebrimbor would have ended up becoming the big bad of the Lord of the Rings verse.
I mean, already calling himself the Bright Lord should send some red flags, admittedly, but...
a reminder that light does not always mean good.
No. There are also some sort of side missions that requires you to conquer some of the ruinous, fortresses that are in this particular region. That are slightly different from the conquer, kill this captain and make the followers build the tower for you. It's again another thing about controlling the region. And if you complete the more you complete them, the bigger the extension of the duration of the power-up ring mode actually is. I think it lasts from 20 to 30 seconds max or something. Essentially, it's strongly recommended for you to actually, properly do this before finishing the DLC, because it helps immensely against the final boss, which, as you can imagine, will be Sauron. For the time being, again, most of these early missions will be about branding or Uruks without being detected, and then killing the corresponding captain. But others will try to spice things up, in order to have like different requirements. Again, it showcased how developers were willing to have these DLCs to be more experimental stuff, rather than just cutting a piece of content from the game in order to repurpose it for later, like a lot of Warner Bros. Themed DLC really felt like. Like, don't get me wrong, I still really enjoy both the Injustice and the modern Mortal Kombat game on a gameplay perspective, but you can tell that, for example, the pre-order characters were made exclusively just so they could be DLC pre-order to be made, and they're mostly a mandate. And Warner Bros. Were like, "Hey, Ed Boon, make a character pre-order DLC. I don't care which." He was like, "Okay."
I'm surprised he didn't just troll people and say, "Hey, you said make a character pre-order DLC. You didn't say who it had to be." And then he makes some like really trollish, deliberately weaselly version of David Zaslav or somebody.
Oh no, I forgot which specific one. Pedro, remind me again. Maybe you remember better name. What's that Mortal Kombat character that showed up in the PS2 era? I think it's called like Mannequin or something. But it's essentially kind of like Mokujin.
Oh, mocap.
Mocap, there you go. It's kind of like that.
It's literally mocap because it's wearing a mocap suit. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like that with, but just without arming any specific celebrity. Although admittedly, since it's still like the equivalent of a mocap suit, I guess it's the equivalent of the mocap actor who did the most of the work for Mortal Kombat.
I mean, you don't even have to call him that. Just call him like Davey Zazie or whatever.
Yeah, mocap's character is literally Carlos Pezina in his mocap suit. Because remember, he did a lot of characters during the 2D era of Mortal Kombat. Well, the OG 2D era, because ever since the Mortal Kombat 9, the games are 2D again. So.
And there we go. Last one.
All right then.
Well, let me just brand a couple of extra them just for good measure. Why not?
Every little bit helps.
As they say, separating families is never a good thing.
So, Theo, we have the Bright Lord and we have the Dark Lord. Do you think Taro is a Tolkien fan, maybe, considering?
Well, remember,
Lord, and of course, the fact that our protagonist is also
the first Nier is played up like an actual, a twisted fairy tale, which, as I mentioned during our Gears of War commentary, that was the original intent, to be, again, a twisted version of Kingdom Hearts, essentially with the protagonist traveling through different fairy tale land, but reimagined more like, in a sense, like, I say, American McGee's Alice in Wonderland. Eventually, that concept will become instead Sino Alice, which I'd say, since I played it enough, it has been, you know, perfectly realized on that front. But still, the Nier that we got is still played up like, you know, a meta twist on a traditional fairy tale, because it's played up like, you know, you have the Shadow Lord, the Lord of Darkness, in his castle that kidnaps the princess, and the hero has to rescue them along with a mage and a rogue, you know. But when you actually piece together the facts of the real world, the Gestalt project, and the reality of the situation, that's where the beauty of the game shines, because it works on all the levels that you want to put. If you want to ignore the real world stuff and considering just a fairy tale on its own, you can do that, you know. If you want to see just the tragedy of, you know, of what happens, you can do that.
Very interesting.
Again, that's part of the brilliance, although you can tell that similar to games like Final Fantasy 7, they were just winging it with what they had, and they still managed to make a good product because of that. You know, Automata instead plays it more straight with its themes instead of, you know, going super meta. Unless until the very end, where the gameplay and the story become completely integrated. Not even kidding, Jova. Like, we did mention that Kingdom Hearts 3 took one of the sequence of that as inspiration from that, because the ultimate hero of Nier Automata, believe it or not, is you and some of your friends.
Yeah. Much like how all of the people who
played the Union X are the real heroes.
Got to appear in naming Kingdom Hearts 3. Yeah.
It's a good thing that they picked up only the, you know, the safe for work usernames.
Well, I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident when they ask for people to sign up. I'm pretty sure. Okay, if I'm correct, don't those mobile games usually have some kind of thing where if you try to put in a curse word as your name, it refuses it?
Yes. So I was mostly just joking.
Even if people wanted, they couldn't anyway.
XX_Pussy Destroyer 87.
Unless of course they get super creative with their curse words, maybe.
Alright, this is a bit of a different mission. You need to you know, brand the Uruks and then order them to destroy the siege machines, the trebuchets.
Yeah, for a second there, I thought you were going to say, we're going to do an embracer group and buy the Uruks or something.
Just
all of them.
The amount of cash to them.
To Eregion, you will be banished to oblivion.
That's instead what happens to the minigame of the real estate minigame in Yakuza 0, where you see Kiryu having to roam around with a, you know, 24-hour suitcase chock full of fat cash, going in front of a building and literally declare to the entire world, I will make an offer in cash, while presenting it and buying the building until you own all the entirety of Kamurocho, which is super hilarious. But no, again, this is relatively simple. You just need to, you know, brand all the Uruks that you can, and then use the command to order them to start hitting the trebuchet. The challenge will be that a bunch of other Uruks will keep spawning and trying to attack them, but that's what you are in for. The Uruks can take the trebuchet on their own. You're just basically there to reinforce your ranks and defeat, you know, all the other Uruks before they attack yours. But yeah, the Drakengard series, to go back to what they just said, the Drakengard series instead plays it a bit more straight by being a proper twisted, going on the RPG and Fairy Tail, more so the first than the others, because Drakengard 3 is more concerned into setting things up as a proper prequel towards the future title. Drakengard 2 is a game that Taro didn't even work on, so it's more of a case of, well, despite being dark on its own, it still plays more straight than the first one, which for other people loses part of the charm. But again, it's worth noting that, like I said, as we noticed also in the commentary of Nier, and also for those of us who played some of the other games, Taro works best when he still put on some kind of restraint, and the first Drakengard is what happens when you don't, because a lot of very fucked up shit that not sure it will fly really well in today's climate is present there, not unless some reworking, which I'm definitely confident that Drakengard will probably get a remake treatment instead of just, you know, our simple port of remaster, because that will allow two things: one, ironing out those few kinks in the story, and two, make it a bit more visually presenting and with a better combat, because I'm sorry to say a lot of things, like, despite of a good storyteller he may be, Taro was not good at, you know, handling a team that could make good gameplay, and as such, the first Drakengard is basically a poor man's Dynasty Warrior.
No, the thing I get from Yoko Taro is that he's a good scenario director but he needs a gameplay director beside him to handle the gameplay. Fumito Ueda is the same. Like, Fumito Ueda is a great storyteller, but his gameplay design, not exactly great.
Yeah, and considering that they're video games, not visual novels, that is a bit of a bigger handicap than you think it would be.
I would say that he worked around this, circumvented around this with the most recent games that he worked on, the Voice of Cards series, where the gameplay in those is relatively more simplistic, not visual novel, but instead, still RPGs and dungeon exploration, with instead, card-related stuff. You will use card programming, but because there's like a lot of flavor text, the storytelling aspect can still shine a bit more through, while the gameplay is not particularly difficult, it allows a bit more leeway and not particularly complex stuff. Fun fact, apparently that originally it was supposed to be just a single mobile game that Taro wanted to make as a sort of a small retirement that he wanted to have, but it was the Dragon Quest producer who had being with him since Automata, basically, who told me, no, just make those instead retail games, as a serious capacity. And they did work out as low-budget games. They're still digital only, so unfortunately you want the physical edition, alas. But you can buy all of them. There's actually a bundle with all three of them currently going on, and it gets on sale sometimes. So if you want to wait, until it's a good price, you can definitely check it out. It's a good time distraction. Alright, another thing that I didn't mention. A new move that is introduced in this. You can press down on the D-pad in order to instantly kill all the Uruks that you have in your command at that moment, excluded captains, of course, and you instantly regain health because of that, thanks to that. This is important because, as you notice, Celebrimbor has much less health than Talion has, and you cannot, augment that. It still stays at the halfway point. As such, you need to balance your health very carefully, otherwise you can get killed very easily because, health constitution. So, you need to basically be in character like Celebrimbor and be a complete dick, where all Uruks and Orcs are nothing more than, cattle, fodder, and batteries for your own sustenance and power. And as such, if you're in a good spot, you really shouldn't feel, sad in popping their heads off as a result.
God forbid there are any of these generals that are friendly.
Sorry?
God forbid there are any of these generals that are friendly.
No, again, all of these do start extremely loyal to Sauron, and it's only via brainwashing that you can, quote-unquote, convince them otherwise.
And what?
I also really appreciate how even in these moments, which are structured like cutscenes, but as you can see there are in-time events that happen in-game, the lighting effect manages to work through just fine. Will work out even better in the sequel, obviously, but you can see all the shining reflection on the armors and the skin that still manages to work out. It's pretty good. Alright, there we go.
Certainly is quite a bit of screaming here.
Mordor will be mine. Behold my monuments of light. My power and grace will wash.
Mate, I'm pretty sure Sauron won't even if he did take over, I don't think Sauron would be keen to share.
Oh, that's not even what he wants. Celebrimbor, like I said, is a complete dickhead that just wants to trounce over Sauron. Remember,
he wants to fully take over.
Remember, this was his region to begin with. This was Eregion, the region that he was ruling as a king. Sauron just came in and, dethroned him, so Celebrimbor just wants to take back what was his rightfully him.
Victory. I will know glory. I will know revenge. And you will know subjugation by my hand.
Yeesh. Again, with that kind of tone and, statements, you really question your morality.
Huh.
you can make an argument and say, oh, he starts out nice, but then, you know, the power makes him drunk and becomes more evil because, you know, ultimately the influence, you know, is still about from Sauron and everything. But, I don't know, part of me makes me wonder if Celebrimbor was always this way. And Sauron just, you know, unlocked a bit of a spark. And yeah, as you can see, because I don't have the slow-mo technique when it comes to the bow and arrow, shooting a fire is not as easy as I would have done, you know, normally. So like I said, with a minimal, you know, type of rebalancing, it still changes the gameplay very considerably. Oh.
No, by all means, wait your turn. Single file now.
Well, some of those will try to attack, similar to Arkham Knight. I don't remember if it was present in Arkham City or not, but at least in Arkham Knight it is. Some mooks will try to attack, you know, in two at the same time, and you need to press triangle 2 times in order to perform a proper counter attack against both of them. Another thing that this adds compared to the base game, by pressing instead left on the D-pad, as you can see, you can do the summon followers command. As in, you will summon automatically a bunch of, you know, Uruks that are loyal to you that you can use as a distraction, as in let them sort them out between the other Uruks, you know, so you can, you know, recover health on your own, or pop them immediately as health immediately on, you know, on that front. Again, the game gives you more tool, but it's nonetheless even more cruel than it was in the vanilla version. Which again reflects this particular storyline. I'm basically just sparing the power of the One Ring when the actual warships will show up. Captains in this case will show up. The warships will actually be branded in the next part. In this case, is once again commanding an army of enough Uruks and, you know, and keeping them stable, you know, until the timer runs out.
You know.
Anyway, like I said, you need to wait until 2 minutes and keep at least 10 branded Uruks for 2 minutes. This is nothing particularly, you know, difficult that you can do. Again, if you played again, if you have mastered the controls properly, this should still be relatively easy to do. One of the best strategies is to wait until a bunch of them arrive at the same time, and then take them on so you can build your combo meter and use the square plus X move in order to actually brand them. Because like in the vanilla game, in this case, it can count as mass branding to Uruks with low health. Go. Might as well ask in the meantime just to get this is going on. Dweebs. Have you actually ended up seeing Season 1 of Rings of Power?
No, not yet.
Me neither. I'm still curious because I heard reactions to that of not being very positive, but I think it's one case where I really need to see it for myself.
Yeah, again, you know, trying to sift through the ones that are sift out the ones that are genuine criticisms of the show from the ones that are like, dude, this sucks because it's got a woman in it, is taxing.
I get it, don't worry. Oh, there you go, Pedro. You wanted to ask Jova something?
Yeah, Java just thought of something.
Okay, go on.
What will happen if a character in this universe got a hold of all 7 world rings?
That would make for...
Reborn.
Okay, either it would drive them mad with power, or with the 7 rings all there, they would actually be able to have proper control it.
So what if we take it one extra step? The 7 world rings plus the 1 ring.
Oh god, we get hyper Sauron.
Yes.
It's funny, as we also mentioned in the item description, and I think we will also mention that in the next game. But there we go. But when crafting the rings for the species of Middle Earth, Celebrimbor did not knew about their corruptive power. It was Sauron who actually influenced that. And men, as sadly as Elrond told and Galadriel told at the beginning of the movies, men were the easiest one to corrupt, unfortunately. The elves did manage to resist, but they are basically in a constant state of, being to be careful, because otherwise you might be subjugated. And instead, dwarves were naturally resistant because of stuff that happened in the Silmarillion, which essentially has them counting as not a proper native race of Middle-earth. It's a bit complicated.
How very specific.
Again, I will explain, I will explain in the next part, because the remaining of this one is also about, since I conquered all the regions, here you go, the segments of this region, the rest of this part will be about finding the artifacts that are present here.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's cool that each DLC still comes with its own set.
And mounted for all Mordor to see. Your skin will fly in the wind as a flag.
Yeah, whatever you say.
There will be no limit.
I will even name a country after you. I will call it Phaeolopolis.
Zing.
Alright, in this case...
Well, you come up with a better name then.
The artifacts in this case are letters that the orcs actually wrote.
Oh, I thought it was the cocking fangs, and I'm like, what? Sauron's really evil. Now he's fucking with other people's marriages.
This again explains a bit more what the society of the orcs is like, instead of being, constantly at war.
Mm-hmm.
They'll slit your throat just to see the big, black, juicy grin of you.
Yeah. And if I recall correctly, Celebrimbor doesn't really have that much of a commentary on these, he just founds them, alas.
Might come in handy.
Yes, that's actually what happened. The Silmarillion explains that Melkor, literally trapped a lot of elves and literally experimented mad scientist style on them. This is also why, in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to, what the god of this universe thinks of the species, the orcs are not really at fault. A concept that Tolkien wanted to expand even a bit more, but unfortunately passed away before he could write something about it.
His kids were the ones who made later material, right?
No, they did not wrote anything as far as I know. They essentially compiled the stuff that he found that was out of order in a more cohesive manner, but that was it.
Ah.
So, now I'm a commander. Lucky bloody. It'd help if these scum occasionally did what I told them, and didn't just look like they were waiting to stick a knife in my back. What I want under my command are soldiers who are courageous.
Damn, this one genuinely wanted to be a good commander.
As long as I can point at someone else for them to
If only those duties didn't involve the pillaging and destruction of man-made.
But it's not just that. He
towns.
thinks that those ambitions are kind of wasted, because he will just end up with a knife on his back because of the ambitions of power.
Oh my god, is he having the Orca edition of a midlife crisis?
Kinda.
Wow. Now that's interesting.
Then the second, then more than we could count. We started shouting in the dark, trying to scare them off. We'd scare one off, but two would come back. Then the shouting would stop, and the screaming would start. Then the screaming would stop, and the sounds would get real bad.
Ugh.
Oh my.
Charming.
Through armor, through flesh, through bone. It was so black down there, we couldn't see the blood.
I mean, it's a bit difficult considering orcs' blood is naturally black.
When we thought we couldn't take it anymore, they poured down the liquid.
Maybe there wasn't enough that it was just that noticeable.
We could see it all, and I'll never forget it. 120 went down, and I came out.
Cool story, bro.
This actor really gave it his all.
Nothing to say, Celebrimbor. Alright.
I guess at this point in time he doesn't care.
Yeah, well, he always has been, you know, again, older than thou, and of course, being that, he's also super racist against the orcs, part of the course.
Makes one kind of interested to know that he still didn't talk as much, though. I guess being a ghost gave him all that perspective.
And also having someone to talk with Talion, you know, I guess only being a ghost.
Alongside each other for years, are at each other's throats. It's one thing for us Uruk to murder each other. It's something else to have some elf using us as his toys.
Nah, come on.
So yeah, again, this also discusses what did happen with the mind control, the branding. Alright, last one, I think.
It literally seems like Celebrimbor would have won if Sauron hadn't gotten... Actually, I programmed this one cheated.
And again, that begs the question, how things will align up in the next game. That's part of a mystery that fans like me wanted to know. We will see.
Because, yeah, making a whole new ring, that's a big deal given how this universe works.
It's kinda, okay, you can argue it's kinda a bit like playing Crisis Core, as in, you know what the outcome probably will be at the end, but you don't know how do we get there. Oh, the misery. Everyone wants to be my enemy.
Cheer up, dude.
Could be worse.
Yeah.
It's Mordor. How it cannot be worse?
You could be endlessly tortured by Sauron.
Smog
that
could be coming back from the dead and laying wreckage to everything.
Alright then, in the next part we will brand all the warships that are remaining, then go to war against Sauron, and we'll see the epic conclusion of the last DLC and as such, this first game.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Ciao.